I'm not sure. I think so. The first thing we'd want to do is confirm that we can land the ship safely on Mars, and so that might be, we'd want to probably land 2 or 3, I think, before sending people, and just confirm that we can land safely. So and actually on those missions we could obviously put a lot of scientific instrumentation. I would recommend putting the lower cost scientific mission stuff on the first mission, but we'll certainly have propulsive landing very reliable on Earth, as we've been able to achieve with the Falcon 9 booster. It's now, knock on wood, so it's no longer, it's quite normal for the rocket to land safely, and we'll do the same with Starship, and then. I'm not sure quite what would happen. I mean, we might be working with NASA or maybe NASA and other other countries to send people to Mars. But I view this very much as what set of actions can we take that maximize the probability that the future is good for civilization? Like what are sort of like civilizational risks that we can potentially mitigate? I just think being a multi-planet species is a tremendous risk mitigation for human civilization. As we know, eventually the Earth will become, if you wait long enough, Earth will become uninhabitable. So in the long run, we're obviously all dead. but I think the technology that we develop in traveling from Earth to Mars, I think will be just a very powerful forcing function for the improvement of space transport. Like the initial boats that crossed the Atlantic and crossed the Pacific back in the sailing days were really terrible. They were often just plain sink. But once there was a reason to do large amounts of ocean trade, the sailing ships, the wooden sailing ships, got dramatically better, but you kind of have to have that forcing function. So that's what I think will happen. It will get much better at space transport, and I think this will also be very important if there's like a potential Earth collision event from some comet or something like that. The asteroids we can predict fairly well, obviously, but there's this massive cloud of comets out there that we don't know the situation. And they come in pretty fast. So there's always some risk of a comet like taking out a continent. There's this place like they talk a lot about extinction events where almost all life was destroyed on Earth, but they don't talk that much about the ones where, well, it was just a continent. There's plenty of sort of continent level extinction events that have occurred in the fossil record, and they're like really so common as to really not really generate much attention. But if we've got large rockets that could potentially do something about that, then that could be, that could at one day save billions of people. But we've got to have big rockets and much more advanced space technology in order to protect against a comet coming in from far away.
Okay, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks, Elon. Our next question will come from Harlan Spence.
Well, I think being able to really, have heavy-duty science research on the moon and on Mars, where you could really just go anywhere you want, drill core samples anywhere you want, I think we'd learn a tremendous amount as compared to having to send fairly small vehicles with limited scientific instrumentation, which is what we currently do for Mars and the Moon. So just having people there who can dynamically decide what they're going to do, and really being able to analyze the whole history of the planet, I think we'll learn a tremendous amount. And that would obviously extend over time through at least the greater solar system. I studied physics because I was just trying to find out what's the universe all about? How does it work? Where did it come from? Why are we here? I actually kind of got sort of depressed at one point because I was like, man, this doesn't seem to be any meaning to life. It just seems to be like, and then I made the mistake of like reading the German philosophers as a teenager. That made it was quite depressing. But then I read Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is really a book in philosophy disguised as humor. And he makes the point that, the question is harder than the answer. And really, basically, the answer is the universe. And we kind of need to figure out like what questions to ask about the answer to that is the universe. And that's the question is the hard part, and then the answer is easier by comparison. So I'm like, I don't know, like why are we here? How do we get here? Is this real? Is this is this a simulation or something? At least if we go to these other planets, we'll make the simulators work harder and have to buy more computers to run the simulation or something. Yeah, I mean, I think it's and if we are able to at least be like a multi-planet species within our solar system, then hopefully we can develop the technology to send probes to other star systems, and eventually maybe send people, although that's tough, but we can certainly send robots to robot probes to all the nearby star systems, and try to figure out what's the meaning of life and what's going on, and are there any aliens out there? Well, I think there is. There's always some risk going into deep space, and we definitely wouldn't want to be traveling when there's like intense solar storms or anything like that. For going to the moon, like obviously, the United States has done that before, and it would be great to go back and great to have a permanent base where, if the costs are good enough, where we can have like a significant science contingent actually, on the base, permanently occupied, it would be epic. But once you're on the moon, of course, you're protected by the moon below you, and then you can put a lot of lunar regolith on top of whatever the research station roof would be. So once you're there, easy to protect. On the way, we'll have to check the weather report. And for Mars, it's going to be trickier. Obviously we don't have all the answers here, but and there may be some clever ways to reduce radiation effects. But I don't think they're insurmountable. Actually, I think it's not that far away. I think probably 2 years from now. Our rate of progress on Starship is very rapid, like I said, we're actually getting ready to do our first global orbital launch attempt within the next few months. We're expecting our license approval from the FAA around the end of this year, and then so that probably means a launch attempt in January or perhaps February. And then we're actually building the factory to make lots of starships and make lots of engines in parallel. So there will be many vehicles. The engine build rate is currently the biggest constraint on how many vehicles we can make, because there are currently 29 engines on the booster, and there will be 33 even at a higher thrust level. So that means so 33 engines per booster, and these are big engines. These are the Raptor 2 is a roughly 240 ton thrust engine. So we're talking like 500,000 or 600,000 pound thrust engines. So really quite intense. In fact, I'd say that building the production system for Starship is much harder than the design of the Starship itself. But we have that in progress, and we intend to do hopefully a dozen launches next year, maybe more. And if we're successful with it being fully reusable, it means that we build up the fleet, just as we are with the Falcon 9 and the Falcon 9 booster, which is reused. We lose the upper stage every time, but we almost always recover the booster.